before war thundered and shields clashed, before empires bowed to the east, there was a pass where the mountains whispered. Thermopylae, the hot gates, where earth met sea in a narrow breath between cliffs. Mists clung to the rocks. The sea sighed in rhythms older than kings. It was the summer of 480 BCE in the southern land of Laconia, ancient Sparta, nestled between the rugged Taygetus Mountains and the sunlit waters of the Peloponnese. A city of warriors shaped not by marble but by silence and sacrifice. It was here, in the hush before ruin, that one man stood still, listening not for commands, but for destiny. This is part of our new storytelling series exploring the heartbeats of ancient legends. Stories like mountains endure the winds of time. This is one such story, one of fire, frost, and faith. If you felt the weight of history stir within you, subscribe now. Many stories still await. Sparta was not built with laughter. It rose quietly, stone by stone, beside olive groves and wheat fields kissed by dry Peloponnesian winds. Here, children were not coddled, they were hardened. Their lullabies were the rhythms of marching feet. Their toys were spears carved smooth by calloused hands. The sky above Sparta was wide and stern. Summers were parched and golden. Winters bit without mercy. Yet in its valleys, fig trees bent with fruit, and goats picked their way over stone paths. Men woke before the sun to plough fields of barley. Women wove cloth in courtyards filled with quiet chatter and morning birdsong. Life here was austere but rhythmic, like a drumbeat beneath the soil. This was a land where silence was strength and death in battle, the highest song. Leonidas was born not as a king, but as a shadow behind elder brothers, a third son, a name whispered, not shouted. At 7 he was taken, like all Spartan boys, into the Agoge, Sparta's sacred forge of warriors. There, the earth became his teacher, the cold his companion. Hunger taught him stealth, pain taught him focus. His voice, once soft, learned the power of stillness. The Agoge was not just a test, it was a cleansing, a place where softness was burned away. Boys were made to sleep under stars even in winter. Their beds were bundles of reeds, their food meager. Laughter was rare, pain was frequent. When they were wounded in training, they were not comforted, but asked if they had learned. Leonidas grew with his brothers in this crucible, stripped of comfort, layered in silence. Yet even there, at night, beneath the stars, they whispered stories of Heracles, of the old kings, of the glories waiting beyond manhood. Spartan life moved like a phalanx, tight, ordered, relentless. Fields were ploughed by helots beneath distant skies. Women ran estates with fierce grace, whispering wisdom between rituals. Markets were modest, brief exchanges of olives, oil, and wool. At festivals, Sparta softened, just slightly. Dancers circled fires under moonlight, their steps echoing the movements of battle. Lyres and flutes whispered songs to Artemis, while young lovers exchanged glances across torchlit streets. Even in celebration there was discipline, but the air shimmered with joy, brief and beautiful, like dew before the sun. Leonidas had no hunger for rule. His days passed in the hum of discipline, training, prayer, patrol. But fate cares little for desire. His brother Dorieus died far from home. Cleomenes, the king, descended into madness. And so the soldier was summoned to wear the crown. He married Gorgo, his niece, sharp as bronze, wise as Athena's owl. Together they stood like two shields pressed side by side. Beyond the Aegean, storms gathered. Persia, the golden behemoth, stirred. Xerxes, son of Darius, sharpened his empire's sword. sending emissaries to Greek lands with demands for earth and water. News of Persia came not with trumpets, but with rumors carried in the mouths of merchants. Tales of endless armies, golden thrones, bridges of ships stretching across the sea. In the agora, elders shook their heads and remembered Marathon. Children played, Persians and Spartans casting stones as arrows. Yet beneath it all, a hush began to grow. Something ancient and immense was stirring. Sparta had answered such messengers before by throwing them down a well. There would be no surrender. At Delphi, the priestess spoke beneath Apollo's golden light. Either a Spartan king will die, or Sparta will fall. Leonidas returned in silence. There was no debate. The law, the prophecy, the soul of Sparta itself pointed to one path. He would go, not to win, but to delay, to defy, to die. During the sacred festival of Carnea, most of Sparta's army could not march. But Leonidas chose 300 men, each with living sons, each ready to become memory. Before they left, the 300 Spartans visited the temple of Artemis Orthia. They offered simple sacrifices, wheat, olive oil, a lock of hair. No tears were shed. That was not the Spartan way. But in every embrace, in every glance between father and son, husband and wife, was a knowledge as old as war. This might be goodbye. They gathered in silence beneath moonlight, kissed their children, embraced their wives, and vanished northward into the rising sun. They moved like shadows through olive groves and sleeping villages. Farmers paused from threshing wheat to glimpse the glint of bronze. At each bend, allies joined them, men from Thespiae, Thebes, Arcadia. By the time they reached Thermopylae, they numbered just 7,000. Each village they passed grew quieter. Children ran beside the marching men, laughing, not yet understanding. In some towns, priests stood in white, offering blessings of protection that none truly believed would work. Yet Leonidas smiled gently. These people were not just names or numbers. They were the reason he walked forward. But the path was narrow enough to believe. Thermopylae was a cleft between mountains and sea. Hot springs steamed beside the rocky floor. An old stone wall, rebuilt with haste, guarded its narrowest breadth. Here, numbers did not matter. Leonidas stood atop the pass. No words, just breath, just wind. Xerxes arrived with thunder. His army stretched to the horizon, tents like cities, ships like floating forests. He waited. 4 days. And then the message, "Lay down your arms." Leonidas's reply was soft, eternal, "Molon labe." Come and take them. The Persians came like waves, crashing on the bronze wall of Greece. First the Medes, then the Immortals, Xerxes' finest. But the Spartans did not break. They moved as one, shields locked, spears flashing like lightning. In the narrow pass, the gods walked beside them. A Persian scout once saw them combing their long hair before battle. To Xerxes, it seemed madness, but to the Spartans, it was ritual. They were preparing for death, not as doom, but as a final performance, a sacred offering. On the second night, a man named Ephialtes, a name that would become poison, approached the Persians. He offered a hidden mountain path, a way to outflank the defenders. The cost of treachery was measured not in silver, but in silence, broken. Leonidas knew what dawn would bring, surrounded, overwhelmed. He dismissed the allies, but some refused to leave. 700 Thespians stayed, arms firm, eyes clear. This would be no last stand. It would be a message carved in blood. On the third day they charged, not to hold the pass, but to burn their names into history. Spears shattered. Swords broke. They fought with hands, with teeth, with fury. Leonidas fell among his men. 4 times the Spartans reclaimed his body. They would not let him lie in enemy hands. At last, they retreated to a small hill, encircled, exhausted. The Persians rained arrows upon them. So many, Herodotus wrote, they blotted out the sun. And then, silence. Xerxes ordered Leonidas's head displayed on a spike. But what he gained in land, he lost in legend. In Athens, artists carved their tale into marble. In Delphi, priests recited their names in solemn prayer. Mothers named their sons Leonidas. Children asked to hear again of the men who stood when the world demanded they kneel. At Salamis, the Persian navy burned. At Plataea, a united Greek army triumphed. Leonidas had given his life, and in doing so, saved his world. Today, a statue stands at Thermopylae. The inscription reads simply, "Go, tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." He did not seek glory. He sought to do what must be done. To die is simple, but to die with meaning, that is a gift the gods seldom grant. Leonidas did not seek that gift. He only answered when it came, and in that quiet flame, he became eternal. If this story moved you, subscribe and join us on the journey ahead. Many forgotten legends still wait to rise.